So here at the Katie Phang News Channel, we're always keeping track of pretty much everything, kind of drowning in the fire hose of the news. And one thing that keeps on percolating and popping back up in the news stream is crypto. And when I saw the recent push by Donald Trump to bring cryptocurrency really back into this land of credibility, I thought to myself, who else better, if not best, to have a conversation about crypto than Ben McKenzie, who's joining us on the screen now. You may look at him and say, that guy looks really familiar. Maybe I recognize him from Gotham or the OC or maybe movies like Junebug and 88 Minutes. But Ben, you've been leading what I say kind of tongue in cheek is a crypto crusade. This idea of making sure that people are as informed as possible about crypto. And you have not only a fantastic book, and I'm going to read the title because I don't want to get it wrong, Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud. But you just made your directorial debut on a documentary, Everyone is Lying to You for Money, which frankly, Ben, could apply to everything in our lives, but was clearly in the framework of crypto. So Ben McKenzie, welcome to the Katie Phang News Channel. Let us know what's going on with this documentary.
Oh, I will. Absolutely. Happily. Thank you for having me on, Katie. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
We were just reminiscing about barbecue before we got on there.
You and I and barbecue in Austin. Tell everybody we got to get some barbecue in Austin.
Yeah, fantastic. So the documentary premiered in London earlier this month, or I guess now it's July, so in June, and received an amazing response. We got one review already. That was a rave. The audience scores were fantastic. You can check it out on Letterboxd, which is apparently where the kids leave their reviews. I feel very old all of a sudden. Everyone's like, yeah, that's how you know if a movie's any good. So I think we're averaging 4 stars out of 5, so pretty good. It went over very well, and I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I do think that the topic couldn't be more timely.
Yeah,
there's obviously a lot going on in the world and a lot of bad stuff, but I would add crypto to that list. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Trump is personally profiting from it and is doing everything he can. Trump and everyone or many people associated with him to push crypto into the mainstream. And my concern is, I mean, originally it was to understand it and to understand what crypto was about because it was the pandemic and I was bored and I have a degree in economics and I just couldn't quite figure it out. But as I realized sort of all of the bad things associated with it, it wasn't just about warning people. That was originally the impetus, was to warn people that they should be careful when investing in it. Now I'm more worried about systemic risk. I'm worried that with Trump reelected and putting crypto into our, making it more connected to our mainstream financial system, it could affect all of us, even those of us, the majority of us who don't know anything about crypto, don't care about crypto, and aren't invested in crypto.
Ben, I got to interrupt you. So would you say it's a fair statement that crypto has now graduated from just being a fringe currency or a fringe financial idea and is now being accepted as mainstream?
Well, maybe we should take the legislation that's pending in Congress as a good example of sort of where we are. There's a bill called the Genius Act. And, given this Congress, anything called the Genius Act, it's got to be dumb. It's a bill the Senate has passed and the House is likely to pass, I would say. And what it's going to do is allow large corporations, including banks, to issue their own cryptocurrencies called stable coins. A stable coin is a crypto that's pegged 1-to-1 with a real currency. So, your Amazon coin issued by Amazon would be worth $1. And every time you go on Amazon, you would have to buy Amazon coin in order to facilitate purchases or whatever. You may ask, why? Why do we need this? I was
going to say, if it's pegged to $1, why not just use an American dollar for purposes of a purchase on Amazon like 99% of us do right now anyway, right?
Exactly. Well, the corporation would benefit. Amazon would get your real money that you would have to part with and would be earning interest on it, right? They basically, the law...
A fool and his money are soon parted, but continue. Go on.
Yeah. And look, this is all hypothetical at this point, but it's becoming closer to a reality. And to be clear, some corporations have been wanting to issue their own money for a while. Meta has been interested in this for quite a while. And the government has stopped them in the past. So the corporations would benefit because you would have to give over your real money, and then they would hold your real money in short-term investments, treasury bills, cash, things I think under 90 days. And they'd get that interest, which, when you're talking about corporations the size of Amazon or JP Morgan could issue
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. For the consumer, it's unclear what they would get out of it. Maybe those companies would sort of split the interest with them a little bit, and the customer could get some modest return, perhaps. But of course, that also, that's also not liquid money. And when you're talking about money of this size that you're sort of treating like cash, but isn't cash, it looks an awful lot like a money market mutual fund, which is one financial instrument that was a big part of the subprime crisis. The failure of those money market mutual funds, which everyone assumed, were perfect and couldn't possibly crash. When they did, it furthered the crisis. So I'm worried that we're creating another potential subprime crisis with this crypto bill.
Well, listen, that's a pretty dramatic statement to make, Ben. And I will say this, you're not kind of in the minority on this, because the imprimatur of credibility is being given by not only Trump, and we'll talk about his kind of grift and greed in a minute. But for example, the SEC right now has announced a crypto 2.0 task force charged with creating clear rules of the road for the crypto industry, because it's the regulation that's really the biggest kind of open-ended question. Who's regulating what and how? What are the enforcement mechanisms? So the SEC is getting involved. So now we have even more of a credibility kind of, again, imprimatur being lended to something like cryptocurrency, which a lot of people, by the way, present company included, by the way, still doesn't really understand. So does your documentary try to tackle that on a baseline level and say, this is pretty much what crypto is from an education standpoint? Because I know you ended up having some really interesting conversations in your documentary with some people that are convicted fraudsters, by the way. I'm not calling them fraudsters because they've been convicted, like Sam Bankman-Fried and Alex Mashinsky.
Yeah. So the way we explain it in the documentary is what I've come to believe, which is crypto is really just a story. It's a story that you're going to become rich by investing in this thing. But all crypto is lines of computer code stored on ledgers called blockchains. And blockchain technology, which we heard about a lot in 2021 and 2022, it was the future, it was going to change everything, it was going to revolutionize all these businesses. Blockchain's been around for over 30 years. It goes back to at least 1991. So it's not a new technology. And you'll notice something about it. It's not used by any other business other than businesses in the cryptocurrency industry. So it doesn't work very well unless you're issuing a cryptocurrency. And as I document in the film, a lot of what people are doing there is lying to you for money. They are taking your real money and giving you these lines of computer code, and you may get it back, you may not. It becomes, for this small segment of the population that believes in it, and it is very small. I had to pull up a poll to make sure that I was right here.
Yeah.
So according to Pew in 2024, 63% of Americans are not confident in the reliability or safety of cryptocurrency. 63%, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All you know about is people going to jail and people losing money. So
yeah,
the sizable majority are not confident, and only 5% are very or extremely confident in it. And yet the Congress, both houses, both parties are going to pass legislation that the American people don't want. They don't want more crypto. Honestly, what most people want is to have the crypto believers stop talking about it. Stop annoying me, especially women, by the way. My wife, Morena Baccarin, the actress, is in the film, and we have a lot of fun with my conversations with her because, I can't tell you how many women I've talked to who are so tired of these dudes, and it's almost always dudes, talking their heads off about crypto and how it's going to change everything.
Ben, it's really interesting because it just occurred to me that there's actually a gender component to this as well. And I think part of it is because we call them crypto bros, right? That's what we call them, one. And two, I also think there's this arrogance that's associated with crypto bros or crypto people that are like, well, you just don't really understand what it is, kind of like patting you on the head in this really dismissive, very arrogant way, when fundamentally, I don't think they understand what it is. I think there is and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, because you're the guy who's just neck deep in this, but there has to be some responsible component to cryptocurrency though, right? I mean, there has to be something that's not just all fraud and grift.
You mean, I guess I don't quite understand. You mean
maybe like the use, like there can be a responsible, legal, totally above board use of cryptocurrency. But I think but I think ultimately it gets overridden by all of what we see in our headlines, which is FTX collapsing, Sam Bankman-Fried going to prison. I mean, that type of energy is what we think eclipses maybe anything that could be a legitimate use for the crypto.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard pretty much all of the arguments you can possibly make about why crypto is a good thing for this or that reason. And I explore them in the film. The main one that I was hearing about then, in 2021, 2022, you hear about a little less now but sometimes is payments. You could send money, particularly internationally, in a frictionless way without paying a fee that would be associated with, MoneyGram or Western Union or whatever. And so El Salvador, which is prominently featured in the film because El Salvador was the only country in the world trying to use crypto as real money. It no longer is. We'll get to that in a minute. Crypto that Bukele, the president down there, who many Americans are now aware of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really fascinating. I've been working on this for 3 years, and all of a sudden people care about El Salvador. Talk about luck in terms of the timing. I mean, sadly, for the reasons that it is in the news. But El Salvador was going to use the crypto as real money, and the sales pitch from Bukele, who's a marketing guy originally, is you could use it for remittances. Let's see, the 3 million Salvadorans who live in this country who send money home, that forms the foundation of the Salvadoran economy. I think it's like a quarter of the economy.
Oh, okay.
So the government was building a system, and people could use it, and it would save the Salvadorans money. The government could take a tiny piece of the volume, and like everybody would win.
But this sounds like this was past tense, though, huh?
Yeah. What happened? Well, on the day the law went into effect, they gave as a sort of a incentive, they gave every Salvadoran $30 worth of Bitcoin. If you scanned your national ID, then you could get $30 and buy into the system. Well, on the day that the law went into effect, the price crashed. It dropped like $10,000 a coin in a matter of minutes. The system froze. Crypto exchanges all over the world couldn't operate. And a lot of people who were trying to get their $30, most Salvadorans just took the money and tried to, use it, only to find out that they couldn't. The long story short is the system didn't work at all. Less than 1% of remittances were paid using Bitcoin, using this Chivo system. People just didn't trust. It didn't work. It was a system built on top of Bitcoin, run by the government in this very shady way. And Salvadorans don't have the money to mess around with this stuff. The average Salvadoran makes $400 to $500 a month, so they can't afford to lose that money. So the system was a bust. And that's the only country in the world where they were actually trying to use it as real money. So the remittance argument, the payments argument, I'm sorry, is just not true for a variety of reasons. One reason is that Bitcoin itself cannot scale. The technology that Bitcoin uses, the particular consensus algorithm that it uses, not to get too technical, can only allow for 5 to 7 transactions per second. Visa can do 34,000 per second. It cannot work on a global scale. It's slow. It's very, very slow for reasons we don't need to go into right now. So Bitcoin just can't work. And then most of the other cryptos, really all of them, Bitcoin can sort of claim to be different because we don't know who created it. There's no one particular person who's behind it, in the sense that the ownership isn't controlled by one person. But all these other cryptos, they're all created by people and companies, right? They all come from somewhere. And one thing you'll notice with crypto over and over and over again is the people that win are the people on the inside. The people who created the coin, the people who invested, Trump, his family, whoever. The venture capital firms that got in early and bought the coins for, almost nothing and then dumped them on the retail public. So it's a bad thing, the net. And then the crime it facilitates is, which I don't even have time to go into in the book, or in the film, I did in the book, is really significant. So while I would like crypto to be regulated, and I've been arguing for years, I testified to the Senate in 2022 that it should be regulated. What we don't need are new sort of either useless or problematic laws that put crypto further into our system and kind of give it a special status where it doesn't have to play by the same rules as other financial instruments.
So it's kind of wild, Ben, as I was preparing, obviously, to speak with you, I discovered that the Federal Housing Finance Agency just last week issued a directive ordering Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, because this kind of gets to our subprime conversation too, right? Ordering Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to formally consider cryptocurrency as an asset in single-family mortgage loan risk assessments. I mean, your sequel writes itself. Does it not, Ben? When you hear me telling you this type of shit, I mean, when I read this and I'm thinking, I bet you the people in the Federal Housing Finance Agency have no freaking clue how cryptocurrency works. And yet now, two of the major federal lenders dealing with single family mortgages are now being told that you can consider cryptocurrency.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to use your fart coin holdings to buy a house.
Oh yeah, my Trump coin, my Trump meme coin, I'm going to use that to buy a house.
There's some fun cryptocurrency names. There's a cryptocurrency called Cum Rocket. I mean, that we're not children, right? Or we shouldn't behave like children.
No, but they have like a dog, like a dog. I mean, it's all crazy, like what it is, right?
The other doc I want to make is a doc about Doge, because of course Doge started as a meme and then became a meme coin that Elon Musk shilled on Saturday Night Live.
And then it became the thing that was a chainsaw to our federal agencies.
Yes. And Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, supposedly targeting fraud and waste and abuse, is itself a fraud, owned significantly by Elon Musk, who did not disclose that when he went on SNL. We live in a crazy world. Look, we can take this conversation any way you want, but I am trying to raise alarms now. There's unfortunately very little we can do on the Republican side because, for obvious reasons, they're all in on Trump. I'm extremely disappointed in certain segments of the Democratic coalition. What the crypto industry has done is buy them off or silence them. They spent $240 million in the 2024 cycle alone. $240 million. The biggest. Yeah, the largest, you can look that up. Largest amount
in lobbying for lobbying candidates for their positions.
Political action committees, candidates, parties. A lot of money. The most of any industry, any sector, any corporate sector. They spent $40 million defeating Sherrod Brown, the senator from Ohio, who was the chair of the Banking and Finance Committee, to which I testified. They spent $15 million attacking Katie Porter in the Democratic primary in California. So they have spent an enormous amount of money, and they've said, and this was even one of their lobbyists was quoted anonymously in an article in The Atlantic saying this is done to prove a point and to scare you, to scare you into not fighting us. The Democratic Party should not engage in these games, in my opinion, and it makes me very angry. I think a lot of things that we see, I live here in Brooklyn, and with the recent mayoral primary, a lot of the anger that comes from the center and the left, actually across the political spectrum, but directed at the Democrats, is that they are too beholden to corporate interests and too afraid to stand on principles and morals. And I'm very worried about that in this particular instance.
So let's talk about that though, because Ben, something that you've explored in your book, now in the documentary, and just something in general that you and I've spoken about, and that you've kind of tackled publicly, is the use of celebrity. So, for example, Donald Trump is leaning into the grift by having his Trump coin, his meme coin, etc. His family has benefited from it as well. Celebrities have lent their endorsements to crypto, where people have lost their savings, right? Their life savings. And listen, buyer beware for everything, right? Be smart about what you do, but you're using your celebrity in a different way, Ben. You are saying, look, maybe doors get opened because I am a celebrity, but I'm using it to educate. I'm a big fan of saying that we need high information Americans. I've transcended the idea of a high information voter, Ben. Like for me, my goal is to make you a high information American, using your critical thinking skills to be able to make better decisions in a pro-democracy way. That's the way that I think that I should be doing what I do and the work that I do. So do you think that your documentary is going to help people understand that celebrity isn't just used in nefarious ways? Celebrity can be used in a way that helps people have a better understanding about something that is literally creeping into the daily discourse of how they're living their lives here in the United States.
I certainly hope so. I mean, the celebrities have gone awfully quiet on their love of blockchain technology and crypto in the years
after the FTX stuff. Heck yeah, holy cow.
Yeah, I think Shaquille O'Neal just paid out a certain amount of money in a lawsuit. You might be familiar with it. I think it was actually a lawsuit in Florida. I'm not sure. But yeah, I have many reasons to point out what the celebrity's complicity in this. And I go into it in more detail in the book. But in the film, one of the things we can do is shame them. I mean, to be honest with you, they're public figures. They're putting their reputations on the line, I would argue. And I want to scare them into not doing this again, because they're going to be tempted again. Now that crypto's working its way back and the money's pouring in, they're going to be offered millions and millions of dollars to do this stuff. Dollars, I mind you. They're offered real money.
Yeah, they're like, oh, a hard pass on the crypto payment. Yeah. My writer says it's not crypto. You pay me an actual US dollar.
Pretty sure Matt Damon wasn't paid in fart coin. So we need to hold them accountable. There's a big difference. The difference is pretty simple if you sort of think about it, but it becomes hard to discern sometimes in this chaotic sort of social environment that we live in. But celebrities have always shilled products. There's nothing wrong with a celebrity shilling a product, like a retail product, a car, life insurance, whatever. This is a financial product. This is something that you can lose your shirt on, and they don't know anything about it. I mean, no offense, but I'm sorry, they don't. And they're selling you on it and convincing you to take your real money and put it into something else while taking real money. That's literally illegal. You're not allowed to offer financial advice. And some of the celebrity, without being a licensed financial advisor, it's not generally enforced. But if you're selling a specific unregistered, unlicensed security, which I would argue cryptos really should be classified as, they can hold you accountable. Kim Kardashian had to pay a fine for shilling an obscure crypto called Ethereum Max. She had to pay $1 million fine. But that was the old administration, and now the new administration is going to do the opposite, probably. And I'm worried that the celebrities are going to come back in, and people are going to be parted with more of their hard-earned money.
A fool and their money, as I said, are soon parted. Ben, I want to say thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. We're having this conversation on the eve of the United States House of Representatives voting on what I call Trump's big bullshit bill. The United States Senate, by the skin of its teeth, the Republicans got it passed with J.D. Vance hauling ass to the Capitol to make it happen, to break that tie. And the latest numbers are that Trump and his cronies have made more than $320 million on Trump meme coin already, at a time when so many Americans are going to be losing their healthcare coverage, their SNAP benefits, and their ability to just survive. So your book, your documentary, just even this conversation has so much value, because it's one way that we fight and we advocate for truth and good. And just people just being on the right side of what's happening here. So thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation. And I urge everybody who's tuning in right now to check out your documentary. Where can they find it? Where can they watch it? What's going on with that?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's a very interesting political climate, as you know well, and so I'm optimistic that the distributor is going to come through. But it's very interesting. The film couldn't avoid being political because crypto's inserted itself into our political system. It is not partisan. It's a nonpartisan film. I make fun of the Democrats, make fun of the Republicans. There's plenty of fun to be had there. But I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit worried that it's going to be difficult, and it may have to come out overseas first as opposed to here, which is really, which it did already, premiering in London, which is
London, yeah,
really, yeah. It says a lot, there are American film festivals that have crypto companies as major sponsors. And I won't go into any more detail.
Wow. Okay. But in the meantime, though, they can check out your book.
They can check out the book. The film will be out, hopefully soon, but check out Easy Money and my writing. I write for various publications, but the last piece was for Slate. And in general, to your point, my goal is for us to take care of each other. Crypto is the perfect metaphor for the opposite, because crypto is a zero-sum game where for you to win, I have to lose.
Yeah.
There's no other way that the system works. So it's kind of like poker, except you're playing an unregulated casino. That's a terrible way to run a society. We need to take care of each other, inform each other, and show some generosity and love to one another. So I send my love back to you. Thank you for having me on, and it's always a pleasure.
It's always good to see you, Ben. We'll get some barbecue soon.
All right, look forward to it.
Katie Phang here. The truth matters now more than ever. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching.